Hey guys, welcome to Art 2, Intro to Art. And as you know, I sent an email out indicating that we will not meet for the first 2 weeks face to face, and we're going to be meeting here online via the Canvas and the course for the first 2 weeks. So this is the first session that I'm going to discuss the assignments for this week. As you can see by this schedule, which I'm going to show each day when I make a video for the first 2 weeks, and then I'll provide it for you as well. You can print it out, or uh, when we start meeting face to face, I'll have it and provide it as a handout. It's a good way to keep on tether with your on schedule with your assignments and what's due each week. Okay, so as you can see, each week there's basically 3 assignments. There's 2 during the week and then 1 on the weekend. So these courses require homework. So I've provided some homework. It's not every week. As you can see, some of these weeks we don't have any homework. Yay! But typically, yes, we do. And also, there were 2 class sessions per week, and that's why there's 2 assignments a week during the week. And that's the way basically the whole thing plays out, except for toward the end, the last 3 weeks, there is only 1 assignment a week, and then we finish up with a unfinished work week. It provides time for you to catch up. And there are quite a few assignments, so that's why I ask everyone to keep on schedule. So every week, finish the assignments that were presented and send them to me via email attachments. So you're going to take a photograph of your work and send it in an email attachment, an image, the photograph in an email attachment. So you need computer access, you need access to a way of taking photographs digitally and uploading them as attachments in emails. And the most simple way is best, because if you're using some more complicated ways, sometimes I can't open that attachment. I'll let you know when that happens, and then you can send them again. Otherwise, just like a regular email attachment, saving a photo to your computer and adding it in as a attachment, that's the way it usually works the best. So I did send also with that email some instruction on supplies to get. Now, I realize that I think everybody paid a fee. I'm not really sure about that. This is kind of a confusing semester, and we haven't worked out all the bugs. So I'm going to get with the art department and find out who paid a fee and then how much that fee was. And then when I can provide you with supplies, I will, which would probably be in 2 weeks when we meet for the first time. Otherwise, I asked everybody just to get some drawing paper, preferably the 11 by 14 size, so we're not working really small. With the drawings we want to do and the artwork we're doing in this class, we want to work a little bigger, at least 11 by 14. That's why I asked you to get that. So a pad of drawing paper. If you want to hedge your bets, you could get Bristol paper, which is what I prefer. I may go ahead and be able to get that in the supplies when we sort all that out, but it's just thicker paper, so you can paint on it, you can do ink work on it, you can do anything on it, and it will hold up to all the whatever you're doing to it, adding water, ink, or whatever. So drawing paper won't hold up as well. But for the first 2 weeks, drawing paper is fine. So all you need is that drawing paper and some drawing pencils. Now, the first assignment does say charcoal, And it's great if you get some charcoal at first. I'm not going to require it because we are postponing the meeting and your supplies if they're coming for 2 weeks. So we'll pick that up later. Possibly have some charcoal pencils to try. Right now, don't worry about it unless you have somewhere you want to go buy the charcoal pencil. Then do that because charcoal is great. It renders dark tones as well as light tones. And then when you use the kneaded eraser that comes basically with it, you knead it with the charcoal because that's the way to erase the charcoal out. It's called a kneaded eraser. And you pull it apart kind of like Play-Doh and then put it back together and rub it around and it gets rid of the charcoal. So between the two, you can get dark tones and light tones without trying very hard. It's very quick at drawing, as opposed to graphite can be a little bit harder to get those darker tones. We're working with dark tones because that brings all the contrast. The contrast brings the shape or 3D appearance to your two-dimensional plane, your paper. So we're after that shape and that appearance, not drawing things that are flat like cartoons and whatnot. So we'll discuss this even further all the way through the semester. That's going to be the topic, and one of the hot topics in the whole course is contrast and rendering darker tones and light tones to give that contrast, because they are the things, that's the whole technique that's going to make a shape appear. And you get that shape also by working with your light source, which makes light areas and dark areas on your subject. All that happens with your light source, and I say a single light source is the best. Now I'm going to provide a few videos in this first week, and I want you to watch this instructional video here where I'm introducing what we're doing and whatnot, and the supplies and everything. Talk a little bit about the syllabus, which will be also provided on the Canvas, so under the course. So let's get right into the first assignment, which was going to be Still Life. First, I want to talk about, well, you can see here in the 8th week there's a midterm. We'll talk more about that when we get into our first face-to-face. You can read it on the syllabus, what it's about. Basically, it's a PowerPoint presentation about an artist or art style, art movement. It's not very long, about 5 minutes. And we can talk more about that later. There is a final, which is a matted and framed, one of your best work. You talk about that at the end because it's not due for 16 weeks. Okay, that's a lot of weeks. So that's basically the structure. And the other part of the structure is we're working in communication with email only. And don't try to do that off of the Canvas site. Use your email, your student email, to get a hold of me, just like I just sent an email out to you. And that's the way we're going to communicate, one-on-one in emails, rather than a Zoom meeting or a chat thing or a discussion. All those are good sometimes, but I found that it's most students don't have the time, or their schedule is different than others, and not a lot of people show up at the same time for those. So the one-on-one scenario works the best for me with students, and I feel like I can connect one-on-one with you about anything. You can ask questions anytime, and at length we will have discussion about your work and what needs to be done to it. Now, when you finish an assignment, you complete something, you're going to send it to me in an email attachment. Like I said, take a digital photo. You're going to send that into an attachment, an image, to me in email. And then I may ask you to work on it more. And I'll give suggestions. And I'll give actual images to work from. And maybe some videos to watch. And then you work on it more, send it back for a better grade. So there's always a potential. Always the chance for getting the best grade possible if you keep working on the artwork. It's not that you turn it into me, I grade it, and that's it, we move on. I'll send it back if I think you can get a better grade, and I'll tell you how to do that. And then you can get a better grade, and that's the best scenario. So, in saying that, it's best to turn these weekly assignments into me by the following week. So, week 1, turn it into me by at least by the second week. The second week, turn it into me by the third week. And then we stay on schedule, and so you don't get really far behind. You start working on uh, the projects I want you to work more on, the assignments. If it's really good and you're done, then I'll let you know that too. But that's why I say that these assignments aren't really due till the end of the semester, but don't wait till the end of the semester. I mean, keep it in your mind that, well, yes, I'm going to send them preliminarily for a feedback and a critique by the following week that they were presented. Like week 1, by week 2, you send it to me. On and on and on as we go. Okay, so that's the way it's going to work. And we can keep. If you have any questions about that, we'll get this going, and you get more familiar with the process as we continue on, and hopefully we'll be in that first face-to-face class when I scheduled it, which will be September 6th. Okay, so let's talk about the first assignment, which is number 1, and I'll refer to these as week 1, number 1, week 2, number 3, on and on, or week 1 homework, which would be described as HW, right? Week 1 HW, that's the homework. Well, here we have the charcoal still life, harmonious lines, and drawing of choice. So that's the first week. I'll break it down to doing 2 videos typically. So one in the beginning of the week, and then on Wednesday another one to talk about the second half of the assignments, number 2 and the homework. So we're talking about number 1 now, which is it says charcoal still life here. I'm going to say that you don't need to do it in charcoal, but if you have charcoal, then go ahead and get it. The pencils I was talking about are pencils like an 05 to 08, so they render dark tones when you press, you give a lot of pressure. And then when you take the pressure off the pencil, it gives light tones. I'll provide a video on that too. So there's other videos, not just this one. And you're going to watch those this week. And one of them's on light logic, and the other one is on holding the pencil in certain positions to render tones and shading, because we shade with the side of our pencil as opposed to the tip. And that's why you need drawing pencils instead of mechanical pencils, because mechanical pencils are very hard to shade with. We're going to be doing a lot of shading and less lines in this class, because most of what you look at, most real life things like faces and profiles and portraits and still life and animals and many things have less lines in the drawing as opposed to shading in the drawing that makes the shape appear. It's the shades of lights and darks that meet up with each other without lines. There really aren't that many lines when you're looking at real life subject matter and you're drawing it. Okay, so let's talk about the first project here. And I'll show you some charcoal in a minute, but still life means it's something that's set up in front of you on a surface, maybe a table in front of you with a single light source. Single light source so that you have light coming from one direction. This is going to give you all the shadow side and the light side of everything. So you see the fruit or whatever those are, eggs on the table. There you have a cast shadow on the table. You have a light side of those items, and then you gradually have different tones that come into the darker side. Same with this vase. Light, a little darker, a little darker, a little darker, very dark, 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 and then a reflection area back here. Same with the spoons. There's light and dark areas to all of that. There's midtones, and typically there's about 7 different tones from light to dark in everything you're drawing. And you have to look for it and start noticing it if you haven't already. And also you're going to be putting in a background like this. It's not going to just be floating somewhere. You have your surface tabletop, cast shadows on that tabletop from your light source. Light source here is coming from the the left side right here. Yeah, on this particular drawing. Let's look at a few more. Now, I'm just going to Bing, or I go to Google, and you put still life drawings, and there they are. There's all kind of examples of that, and a lot of them are, some of them are very dark like this, lots of contrast. But you have a light side. Here's the light coming from the right here, and look at all this dark subject matter in tones that play out, but the contrast make that jump right off the page at you. It's got a lot of presence because you have all those tones and all that contrast working to bring that out. If it's all one tone or two tones or very few tones, it sits there on the page very flat. Okay, here's a really good drawing of a bowl of fruit. The light is coming from the left side here because you see the bananas are lit up on this side. They have sections in the bananas, so this tone is different than that. That tone is different than that, different than that. There's a little shadow on this banana from the stem, and then you have reflection marks on the apples right here, very lightest area, and then the other tones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 different tones in everything you're drawing. It isn't 1 or 2 tones, and that's something you have to start noticing. It's going to be discussed in the first 2 videos other than this video, and I want you to watch them all before you start drawing so you can start holding the pencil correctly and also looking for all these tones and contrast and light source. That's probably 90% of my whole class, is knowing where the light source is, what the light is on your subject, and how you're going to make that happen, how you're going to make a 3-dimensional appearance appear with using your light source and the tones from graphite or charcoal. When we get into color, it's just using color to do the same thing rather than gray. All right. But if your subject matter doesn't have something as white as paper on it, then it has a tone. Nothing should be left white as paper when you're drawing still life or anything else you're going to send me. It shouldn't be left white as paper unless it is as white as paper, right? Okay, so most things aren't unless you're drawing white paper or snow, or even a wall that's painted white will have tone in it from the various light source coming on it and the reflections on it. And that's the same with anything else. And pick things that aren't white as paper, because white as paper is going to be boring. It's not going to have any tone qualities in it at all, and it's going to be very flat looking. So like I said, still life is setting up subject matter in front of you. This is something that might be in an art class. All this cloth folding around. I'm not saying to do that. A bowl of fruit or a vase with flowers in it, or even, what is it back here? They have some brushes in this one, had some brushes in it. Stuff like that. It could be whatever, really. It doesn't have to be like that, but I'm just saying various things. Don't put one thing out there, okay? I'll say that again. Don't put one thing, one item on the table and draw it. That's not still life, really. Still life is a collection of things, typically. Now, don't hold that to me, but that's at least my perception of it. And that's what I'd like you to do. So, because you're trying to make a composition placement of items in your picture plane. Picture plane is how what the surface is you're drawing on. You're placing this vase or that cup or that apple or this glass in a certain way. Some are overlapping each other to make an interesting drawing. You don't want a boring drawing or one cup sitting there. You're supposed to be making something that's very interesting. Now, another thing I want you to notice is that everything that you're looking down into from the table, like the top of this cup or the top of this, there's an lisp there. It's an oval shape, like this. Oval shape. That's an lisp. It's called an lisp. There's an lisp on the bottom too, because where it hits the table, it's not flat. There's an lisp there because the whole thing is round, right? This whole thing is round, so there's a lisp on the bottom just like the top. It doesn't all of a sudden get straight on the bottom because it's sitting on the tabletop. It isn't. So this shaker, same thing. It's round on the bottom like the top. So there's an lisp. There's an oval shape all the way through this. Okay. So let me go back, excuse me, and show you some charcoal. In case you do want to do some charcoal work. Like I say, charcoal, you put it on thick, you put it on thin, you use the eraser, you can get all the tones. You can erase out tone, you can add tone, you can smush around with your fingers, you can get Q-tips and smush around. That's the same thing with graphite, but it doesn't move quite like charcoal does. This is a very interesting drawing. It's very, it's got a lot of character with the marks. Something like that, or even like this, is a very preferred way to do things. And you want to get something really perfect like this, you can do that too. But you can get really light areas and dark areas really fast with charcoal. Okay, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a lot of contrast because contrast brings out the shape. The more contrast in these things, I mean, everybody's going to probably agree that something like this and something like this is a stronger drawing. It's got more contrast than this one. This is kind of boring and has just no background to it or anything. And you can use the background to your advantage on light and dark things that you're drawing, your subject matter. The dark area could be your background, or you could have a lighter than that area in the background, like this, or this. Or you can actually mix it up to where there's light and dark in the back. That works really good with charcoal. Let's go back to the graphite. And let's see. And they're using more of the lighter background with it. Okay, so, work it as you will. I know this is our first drawing. What you want to notice about your subject matter when you set it up is where the light source is. And so you're going to make that happen. Sitting by a window and having it come in on one side is a single light source. If there's no window and no outside light, you're going to use a lamp or something, you want a single lamp. And you want it on one side or the other as opposed to directly on top of it or right in front of it, because when you move the lamp one side or the other, now you're creating shadow side and light side, as opposed to everything just totally lit up and you're not going to be able to draw or any shading tones to make it have a shape. You want those shading tones. So even if it's slightly on one side or the other, it's going to give shading tones on one side and light sides on the other. And in between the light and the dark, you have contrast you're creating, and that's going to make a shape happen with your subject. As opposed to just drawing everything with one tone or hardly any tone and then expecting that to be a strong drawing. It isn't. I'll be asking you to do it over or more to it and give you suggestions. So straight away start looking for that contrast and how many tones from 1 to 7, light, a little darker, a little darker, a little darker, 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 into the darkest. And between the lightest and the darkest, you have probably 5 other tones in there, midtones. I call them. Okay? All right. So let's look at these. I mean, this goes on forever. You can go in here and get all kind of ideas on what to draw. I want you to set up something of your own to draw. Now, don't draw something off of here. I've seen these a million times, so I know I'm going to know you did that. I want you to draw something of your own you set up with a light source to get the idea going of a single light source, still life, coming from one side or the other of the light source, and giving you all that contrast like this does. I want smooth shading. This is okay because this is a really good drawing, but it's kind of scratchy. When you do scratchy shading like this, it creates a texture. Are the apples really scratchy like that? No, they're smooth, right? And I understand what they're doing here, but when you use that as opposed to something else that has smooth shading to it, like this one, and maybe they are creating a little bit of texture on the pumpkin back here. But the rest of it is perceived to be smooth surfaces. So you want a smoother shading mark when you're making the shading marks. And that's usually done with the side of your pencil. So you can set up quite a few things. So let's get creative, right? Don't just set something up to get over the class and set it there and that's it. Like these onions in the bag, that's a pretty good composition. It's interesting. You have all this dark area in here, and now this light's up here where the onion is getting hit by the light. A little darker area down in here, all the veins in it, and then the folds in the paper and the surface. Here's a good one that they show the background being darker on this side and lighter on this side. And every place it meets your subject, there's a difference. So it's not the same tone when the background hits your subject, because you want to separate your subject from the background. You don't want it to be the same exact gray tone. You want it to be different. So that's why they smoothly went from the light to the dark here. But this is lighter here. This is a little darker than that, so it works out well. Cast shadow. This is lighter than that. This is the edge of this is lighter than the dark here, and the paper is a slightly lighter tone, and then lighter here than the background. So that all works out because they separate themselves from each other. All right, so I'm going to provide some other videos to watch. Look at these here. You can pause this video at any time. That's why I like to do them. And you can go back. You can go to Bing yourself, Bing Images or Google Images, and put in any of these terms, any assignment I'm talking about. And let's go by the assignments each week, in concession. So the first assignment, the second. Don't go way down in here and try to do these without any instruction, okay? Probably not going to work out for you unless you're really, really good at drawing. Now we're going to do a little painting. We're going to do a little ink work. We're going to do some collage. We're going to do some sculpture, found object stuff, and some more painting back in here. So it's kind of like a good cross-cut section here. We'll talk a little bit about cultures and whatnot, and bringing in some cultures into your artwork possibly if you want to, and represent that in your artwork here if you'd like. All right, so look for another video on Wednesday. Look for this video and a few more. Well, of course, if you're watching the video, you already found it, right? Okay, but when I'm making it, it's like, look for this video. Anyway, any questions, let me know. We're going to communicate through email. Don't try to communicate through Canvas, okay? And don't submit anything on the Canvas course. Submit it in emails to me in email attachments. All right. We'll talk with you later.